Jimmy Fallon may be the most likable host on late night, but he's also been accused of being awful with his staff. From irritating the SNL cast to more recent allegations, there's a lot about Fallon you may not know. Jimmy Fallon grew up in a Catholic household, which is hardly surprising when you consider his mother's somewhat unique background. During an appearance on The Howard Stern Show, Fallon revealed a surprising detail about his mom.
My mom was a nun at one point. Isn't that bizarre?
But his mother wasn't married to the church for all that long, serving as a nun for only a week. Fallon also revealed that he too once flirted with the idea of becoming a priest. However, the late-night star admitted that the notion didn't survive beyond the 8th grade. During an appearance at the New Yorker Festival, Fallon shared more memories of nearly joining the priesthood, saying, "I loved the whole idea of it. I loved dressing up. I loved the smell of incense. I loved the whole idea." Once he moved on from the idea of the priesthood, young Jimmy Fallon set his sights on the entertainment industry. During an episode of The Tonight Show, Fallon displayed his 8th grade yearbook. He had the yearbook opened to a page in which his teacher made predictions about the futures of her students. The camera panned down the page to a photo of his younger self sitting in front of a computer. He then read the teacher's prediction.
James Fallon will replace David Letterman on The Late Night Show.
But before he could even think about hosting a late-night show, Fallon had a different obsession. By the time he hit adolescence, the future late-night star had become a huge fan of Saturday Night Live. He even insisted on watching each episode alone so as not to miss any of the show. He told Vanity Fair, "I just didn't want anyone ruining my experience. No small talk. I wanted to see the sketches, the new characters, what the angle was." His parents allowed him to enhance his viewing experience by enjoying a few beers, despite his not being old enough to legally drink. Fallon recalled, "I'd just sit by myself and I would have a 6-pack of Pabst. I don't know if I made it all the way through the 6, but I'd just sit there and watch the show and tape it." During his teen years living in upstate New York, Fallon discovered he had a talent for mimicry. One day, his mother was listening to the radio and she caught wind of a contest seeking the funniest undiscovered comedian in the Hudson Valley. Fallon recalled in an interview with USA Today, "It was at Bananas Comedy Club, and it was 2 or 3 minutes of an impression. My mom said, 'Jimmy, you should do this because you do all of these voices in your bedroom and I can hear you.' And I'm like, 'What else can you hear? Because this is creepy.'" Fallon decided to give it a go. He put together a bit in which he impersonated 12 celebrities vying to be the spokesperson for a troll doll and won. He recalled, "I won a lot of money. I want to say like $500. So for 2 minutes of work, and I had been working since I was 13, that was so much money. I freaked out and said, 'This is my future. This is it.' The cold hard truth was, no, you don't make $500 every 2 minutes." Encouraged, Fallon began signing up for talent shows. He wound up honing his stand-up skills when he ultimately landed a gig as the MC at that same comedy club. Fallon eventually decided to move to Los Angeles to pursue a career in comedy. He spent his first few months there sleeping on a friend's couch until finding his footing. He told USA Today, "I did improv. I took classes at the Groundlings. I was very lucky out there. I got to do a lot of cool things. One of those cool things was landing a bit part in the Michael J. Fox sitcom Spin City." Fallon played a photographer on the show, which was also his very first screen credit. Interestingly, another future star may have been responsible for Fallon landing the gig. When Chris Evans appeared on The Tonight Show, the Avengers actor confirmed that he was working as an intern in the Spin City casting office at that time. Upon hearing this news, Fallon told Evans,
I feel like I owe my whole career to you.
In 1997, Fallon landed an audition for Saturday Night Live. He recalled to USA Today, "I went to the comic strip in New York City and I did my troll doll act and I totally bombed it and it was terrible." Fallon then returned to Los Angeles feeling as if his dream had slipped through his fingers. 1 year later, he was invited to audition again, but specifically instructed to lose the troll doll. He recalled, "I wrote a whole new act, came back to New York and auditioned on the stage of Saturday Night Live. I had a great audition." After being repeatedly warned that SNL creator Lorne Michaels never laughs during auditions, Fallon was shocked when his impression of Adam Sandler did the trick. He told USA Today, "And I made Lorne laugh. He put his head in his hands and he laughed, and I thought, wow, I remember just floating out of there." Tina Fey also watched that audition and said she realized immediately what Fallon could bring to the show. Fey told Vanity Fair, "He's one of 2 people I've ever seen who was completely ready to be on the show. Kristen Wiig is the other one, and Jimmy was ready, like if there had been a show to do that night." One of Lorne Michaels' first SNL edicts was to insist that cast members not laugh during a sketch. Although breaking character had become a staple of the Carol Burnett show, Michaels felt it was a ploy to elicit cheap laughs. Jimmy Fallon, however, became known for his frequent onstage crackups, to the point that the act of breaking character has since come to be known as Jimmy Falloning. While audiences seemed to like it, his giggle fits weren't always appreciated by his SNL co-stars. That was particularly true of Tracy Morgan. Morgan told Penthouse, "That's taking all the attention off of everybody else and putting it on you, like, oh, look at me, I'm the cute one. I told him not to do that in my sketches, so he never did." Fallon has been insistent that he never intended to crack up all those times, but simply couldn't help himself. He told Interview, "I think you should not break. I never did it on purpose, and I always felt bad if I did. But I tried my hardest not to, and then people started knowing that I was an easy laugh, so Will Ferrell or Molly Shannon would go out of their way to make me laugh." One of the strangest footnotes in Jimmy Fallon's career was his short-lived side gig as a model. In fact, he was tapped to appear in some print advertisements for Calvin Klein in 2002. Fallon told Paper back in 2001, "As a comedian, you don't really think that you're good-looking, so when someone asks you if you'd like to model Calvin Klein, you're like, oh my god, yes, I want the billboard to be right over the Improv." Fallon resurrected his ad campaign in a 2019 Instagram post, writing, "This was a great year for Calvin Klein." He also displayed the pics on The Tonight Show where he compared his Calvin Klein spread to that of guest Jamie Dornan. Dornan's ad features the 50 Shades of Grey star displaying his ripped physique while wearing only a pair of CK undies, while Fallon is fully clothed in his ad. Fallon quipped, "Since when does Calvin Klein make mechanics outfits? I couldn't have more clothes on." Fallon referenced his ad during a different bit for The Tonight Show in which he wrote thank you notes. As his ad appeared on screen, Fallon joked,
Thank you, new Calvin Klein ad with Shawn Mendes, for being the second hottest Calvin Klein ad of all time.
Nicole Kidman's 2015 appearance on The Tonight Show proved to be exceptionally memorable when she revealed she was once interested in dating Jimmy Fallon, but he totally botched it. It all began when a friend called him up and said he was with Kidman, who wanted to meet with him about a potential role in her upcoming comedy Bewitched. Fallon admitted he panicked when the friend told him they were 10 minutes away. He explained,
"Hackers, I don't even talk about that. I don't have dinner party. I don't have anyone over my house. I'm like, I have video games and sneakers." I mean,
at that point in the story, Kidman interjected, saying,
"I just remember I liked you."
Fallon appeared stunned to realize all those years later that Kidman's intentions were romantic.
what are you talking about?
Yes!
Did I date Nicole Kidman?
Sure.
Did we go on a date?
According to Kidman's recollection, Fallon was a dud, hardly saying a word to her while they hung out at his apartment. Then she recalled that Fallon completely doused whatever tiny spark of romance that may have remained when he began playing a video game. Kidman told the audience,
"It was bad." And I kind of left and went, "Okay, no chemistry." And then I was like, maybe he's gay.
Jimmy Fallon has spent decades as a performer, and his urge to entertain is apparently one that he doesn't easily shut on and off. In fact, according to various reports, Fallon has been known to unleash his musical gifts, oftentimes when the cameras are off. One of those occasions was reported by Dan's Papers in 2013. Fallon broke into song at the Old Stove Pub in the Hamptons where he was filmed leading a raucous sing-along of Billy Joel's Piano Man. Fallon pulled a similar stunt while vacationing in the Bahamas. According to the Caribbean Journal, the comedian led a group of patrons to sing Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. He then sang a second Queen song, We Will Rock You, before launching into a Backstreet Boys number. So it turns out The Tonight Show's love for musical segments stems from the host himself. Jimmy Fallon is part of a late-night tradition at NBC, which happens to involve an enormous pickle. When Fallon was nearing the end of his run as host of Late Night, he welcomed new host Seth Meyers to the show. During their conversation, Fallon recalled that when the show's former host, David Letterman, left the show, he presented incoming host Conan O'Brien with a giant pickle. From that moment on, O'Brien proudly kept the pickle in his office. When O'Brien left to host The Tonight Show, he passed the pickle to Fallon, who in turn left it with Meyers. When Fallon received the pickle from O'Brien, there was a note attached which read, "Whenever you're done, which won't be for a long time, make sure you pass it on to the next sap. Knock 'em dead." Interestingly enough, that isn't Fallon's only experience with pickles. As he revealed during a visit to Live with Kelly and Ryan, he began making his own pickles as a hobby. He told the hosts,
I know, I'm really into it.
Fallon also revealed that he received pickling advice from none other than celebrity chef Martha Stewart. While Jimmy Fallon was still a cast member on Saturday Night Live, he began booking acting roles. Among these was a brief cameo in HBO's World War II miniseries Band of Brothers. During an episode of The Tonight Show, he recalled that his inability to drive nearly wrecked the whole thing. Fallon recalled, "That episode was directed by Tom Hanks, and I was so nervous. I had to just drive a Jeep and say my line, 'Good luck, boys.'" One big complication, however, was the fact that he was tasked with driving a vintage World War II Jeep with a standard transmission. Fallon explained, "I don't know how to drive, and I just say my line, and I'm supposed to look really heroic." try as he could, Fallon couldn't get the vehicle to move. As a result, Hanks enlisted a couple of crew members to push the Jeep while Fallon was filmed reciting his line. The host admitted, "So I'm so nervous, there's like 200 extras, so I drive, I hit my spot, I go, 'Good luck, boys,' and I forget to press the clutch, and these two dudes are pushing the car and the wheels aren't moving because the clutch isn't in." Somehow, the moment was captured by the camera, although just barely. There's no denying that Jimmy Fallon has brought viewers tons of memorable moments on The Tonight Show, from impersonating Neil Young to getting his ear pierced by Harrison Ford. However, in terms of sheer surgical shock value, nothing can top Fallon's 2011 visit to the Dr. Oz show to have a mole on his hand removed. A press release in UPI stated, "Jimmy arrived in a hospital gown, and despite some nerves, he put his trust in the hands of Dr. Oz and physician Dr. Arthur Perry. As he sat in the operating room chair and doctors made incisions and sutures, Jimmy turned his eyes away, unable to watch." In order to take his mind off of what was going on, Fallon sang the national anthem while the audience cheered him on. According to Dr. Mehmet Oz, Fallon was far from the ideal patient. He joked in the press release, "We had to struggle to get him downstairs to the studio after wrestling him to the ground. He yelled and screamed throughout this. God knows why. It was a tiny little needle. What a crybaby. I didn't even get his copay. I'm going to send him a bill, a big bill." Ultimately, the news was good, with the biopsy determining that the mole was not cancerous. Ben & Jerry's develops ice cream flavors for certain iconic celebrities, including Cherry Garcia, the creamy tribute to the late guitarist for the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia. Late-night comedian Jimmy Fallon also has a popular variety of the brand's ice cream to honor him. That flavor is the Tonight Dough, boasting 2 different types of cookie dough within a mixture of caramel and chocolate ice cream.
It's the greatest ice cream ever.
That isn't the only ice cream to have been created with Fallon in mind. Prior to his becoming host of The Tonight Show, Ben & Jerry's developed another flavor in his honor. That ice cream was Late Night Snack, which was introduced in 2011. The flavor is most notable for having chocolate-covered potato chips mixed in, thus providing it with some crunch. However, when Fallon left The Late Show in 2014, Late Night Snack also began vanishing from shelves. In early 2015, the flavor was discontinued. Jimmy Fallon's 2005 comedy, Fever Pitch, was significant for a number of reasons. Not only did the film chronicle the Boston Red Sox winning the World Series for the first time in more than 80 years, but Fallon also got to know his future wife, Nancy Javonin, while making the film. Javonin first met Fallon on the set of Saturday Night Live in 2004 while supporting her best friend, Drew Barrymore, who was hosting the show. It was during the filming of Fever Pitch, however, that Javonin, who was one of the producers, really began crushing on Fallon. Javonin recalled on The Tonight Show, "But then on the set, we were on location, and that really creates this camp feel for everybody. And he was just so friendly and fun and welcoming, and he loved music. What sealed the deal for her was when she saw Fallon playing with the young children of another of the film's producers."
And so I think that's when my heart just sort of melted even more.
They got married in 2007 and welcomed 2 daughters, Winnie Rose, born in 2013, and Frances Cole, who arrived in 2014. Viewers came to know Fallon's wife and kids when he presented The Tonight Show from his home during the pandemic. Javonin operated the camera during these segments, while their daughters often served as guests. In September 2023, Rolling Stone published a shocking exposé based on interviews with more than a dozen former and current staffers of The Tonight Show. Those staffers alleged that Fallon had created a toxic workplace behind the scenes. Among the allegations were that Fallon had an unpredictable temper, which created fear of being on the receiving end of one of the host's angry outbursts. One former Tonight Show staffer told the publication, "It's a bummer because it was my dream job." Fallon responded to the allegations from that article, but in private. According to staffers who spoke with Rolling Stone, Fallon told his team, "It's embarrassing and I feel so bad. Sorry if I embarrassed you and your family and friends. I feel so bad I can't even tell you." He did not, however, offer any public acknowledgement of the allegations, which angered one of the former employees. The staffer told Rolling Stone, "Would I have loved that apology to some extent, whether it be from NBC or Jimmy directly, have gotten to former staff? Yes, I would think that that would be the most accountable and responsible thing to do."